Hey guys, this is Isaac from Contender Bicycles, and today I have here the Hightower. We've done the tech review in the past, which you might have seen, and today we're going to be going over the ride review. I've had the chance to put a couple hundred miles on this bike, and I've really liked it. I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. The new Hightower, being 150 millimeters to travel up front and 145 millimeters to travel in the rear, is a fairly centered trail bike. It's not the lightest trail bike ever, but it's also not the heaviest, which is one of the reasons it drew me to it. Me personally, as a rider, this bike was the second bike into my garage, so it's not my only mountain bike, which is one of the reasons why I went with the Hightower and not a lighter trail bike per se, like the Tallboy. My other bike in my garage is a cross-country bike, so I wanted something that could handle something a little bit more with more technical capabilities, something I could push more aggressively in the descents, but also still have the ability to do a long day when I want to do a long day, which is really great for what the Hightower is. There are plenty of all-around trail bikes that fit the description like this, like a Score or the Orbea Occam. But one of the reasons I went with the Hightower specifically is due to maintenance, which is actually a really big part of this bike as a ride review. I have been riding this bike now for the last 2 months, and I've put quite a few miles on it, and I have yet to need to maintain it at all. I have done like standard maintenance, you know, washing, lubing and anything like that, but nothing's broken on it. I've had no issues with creaking, any weird sounds. It's been really awesome. Considering how many miles I put on it, that lack of maintenance is amazing, which is also one of the reasons why a lot of people like to buy a Santa Cruz. In terms of the bike itself, it really feels like a fairly good all-around trail bike. It climbs amazing, it descends just as well as it climbs, and it can do long days just as well as it does like a technical rocky chute. I was really surprised, honestly, in how well this bike climbed. Previously to owning this bike, I was really more of a cross-country only kind of guy, and I've really only owned cross-country bikes. I was really surprised at actually how good the Hightower climbed in comparison to my cross-country bikes, because when comparing it to my cross-country bikes, it's like my immediate thought when I bought this was, oh, it's not gonna climb as one of my cross-country bikes, I'm not gonna like climbing it. And then sure, at the end of like a 4-hour day, I can definitely feel the fact that I was pedaling around something that's, you know, 33, 34 pounds, but it's not nearly as bad as you would think it is. It climbs super well. The VPP suspension linkage gets amazing traction and really helps you in technical climbs. And the front wheel doesn't wander a ton. I did end up cutting the bars down a little bit. The bars were a little wide for my taste, and I did find my front wheel wandering more in the climbs when I had them. So I cut them down to 760, and that really helped a lot. I don't think I'd cut them any narrower. I think that's already pretty narrow for my frame, as I am 6'1", but it did help from that front wheel from wandering in the climbs. The one thing about this Hightower is that it comes spec with a DHR2 front and rear tire, which I actually was not the biggest fan of. I found that this bike really leads you to kind of push your abilities in a descent, and it's much more capable than you would think it is, and the DHR2 front tire actually kind of holds you back. It slips out a little bit in dusty, loose corners, and I wasn't the biggest fan. So I ended up actually swapping out the front tire for a Maxxis Assegai, and it really showed what this bike is capable of. You can kind of feel it on like more smooth terrain. The Assegai definitely does slow you down a little bit, but it really lets you push this bike to the full capabilities of the Hightower in the descent. This bike, as it sits, is meant to be an all-around trail bike. I wanted an all-around trail bike for long days, but I also want to be able to push it in the descents, as I've mentioned before, which is another reason why I also put on a 200 millimeter front rotor, while this bike is spec'd with a 180 millimeter front rotor from factory. Yes, the bigger rotor does add a little bit of weight, but for anybody getting a Hightower, I might recommend that as an upgrade. It actually really helped the bike kind of stay under control after you get a little bit of speed and maybe something a little bit steeper or like a rocky chute where you're getting kind of ahead of yourself and you need to slow down. Having that bigger front rotor was really nice, though it is not needed for everybody, especially if this is the only bike in your garage and you're using it on more like kind of rolly terrain because it's the only bike you have, then the 180 front rotor might not be the worst thing. If you want to be able to push it, however, the 200 mil rotor is pretty awesome. I was also really enjoyed the glove box feature. This glove box is fantastic. I have in this right now, I have a tube, I have multi-tools, I have a plugger kit, I have a chain tool, I have a CO2, and all in there. And I was kind of worried when I first put that stuff in there. I was worried about noise, I was worried about rattling. I didn't want to feel it bouncing around as I descended, and I ran into none of those issues. Any issues I thought I was gonna have with this bike when I first bought it, none of those issues have actually happened, which is really awesome. To be 100% honest, one of the really big reasons I bought this bike was the color. sounds pretentious, yes, but when you look at this translucent purple, as they call it, it's fantastic looking. I bought the bike because I thought it looked really good, and I've ridden Santa Cruz's before and I knew they handled well. And even beyond that, the bike blew my expectations out of the water for just how it handled. If you go onto Santa Cruz's website, they do have a technical suspension sheet for the Hightower, as they do for every single one of the bikes they carry, which I really, really did enjoy. That sheet itself let me know what pressures I should run. It let me know what rebound I should run. It let me know compression settings, and I put it to the recommended settings for my weight. And honestly, this bike handles amazing with those settings. Santa Cruz knows what they're talking about, and those settings really, really blew me away with how well this bike could perform. The VPP suspension gets amazing traction, and it really, really lets you corner well. I think that's one of the things I really like about the Hightower, is that it corners better than almost any other 29er trail bike I've ridden ever, for instance. It may not climb as well as some other trail bikes I've ridden for sure, but being able to corner and get as good traction as it does and hold steady in descent, it's really, really awesome. It's definitely not the trail bike that descends the best for a trail bike. It's not the trail bike that climbs best for a trail bike, but it does everything that it can do the same. It's a perfect all-arounder, and I know a lot of people in the bike industry hate the term quiver killer, but that truly is what the Hightower is, which is one of the reasons why I really loved it. That, along with the ease of maintenance and the simplicity of the bike, is really, really what drew me to it. If you guys have any questions about the Hightower and might want to get one for yourself, come check us out at contenderbicycles.com or visit us in store in Salt Lake City or Park City. Or feel free to chat us on our website. Thank you so much.